Welcome in. It's Thursday, October 31st with the EBDB Weekly Update. I'm your host, Tim Sorrells, and with me today, as always, Brett Colleton. How's your Halloween, Brett?
Tim, it was fantastic. You see my Jurassic Park shirt, dressed my son up like a little dinosaur, hung out on the street. Our neighborhood's super good for trick-or-treating, so it was super fun. Had a couple friends over to watch the chaos and got rid of literally all the candy that we bought. And we're a full-size household, so we had like 120, 150 pieces of candy that we got rid of. It was pretty awesome. Tell me, what did you and the crew dress up as this year?
This year, Zoe was Elsa, and we made the mistake of asking
Classic.
her what our costumes should be. So Zoe picked our costumes out for us, and I was a pumpkin,
Nice.
Rachel was a frog, and she chose Winnie the Pooh for Ryan. So at least Ryan got something cute because Rachel's and my costumes were not good.
How did Rachel feel being a frog?
Could have been worse.
Okay.
The conversation came up like a month and a half ago because she wanted to be Elsa forever, and we just assumed that she'd forget what we were supposed to be. We brought it up again, like, so what are we gonna do for costumes? And she's like, oh yeah, Dad's a pumpkin, Mom's a frog. And I'm like, oh well, shit. Okay, I guess we have to be frogs and pumpkins now. So Rachel made the mistake of ordering her costume off Amazon, and it was like frog ears, and she ordered them like 10 days ago. And we're sitting
Oh
in my
no.
office today, and she's like, I gotta get my costume. I wonder where that is. And she's like, did I order it? It just never arrived. It's just like, it still like hasn't been shipped by these people. So her little frog
Wow.
ears, last second, she had to go build herself a costume so that Zoe wouldn't be disappointed.
Wow.
So she figured it out, and it worked.
Good parenting.
I know. But yes, overall, it seems like a solid Halloween all the way around for you guys.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, getting into the league news here, and league news and waivers. A little bit more trades in the league. NFL is getting close to the deadline here. What do you think about the Deontay Johnson trade? I think that's really the biggest thing that's happened.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I've thought Deontay Johnson is a really good, high volume possession, big, just a monster in a PPR league. But I also kind of expected Zay Flowers to be that for the Ravens as well. So I don't really understand where he fits into that offense, how they're hoping to deploy those two guys. So part of me really wanted to put in trade offers for Deontay Johnson. Part of me wanted to put in trades offers for Zay Flowers. I feel like one of those two guys is absolutely going to pop. I just cannot tell for the life of me who it's going to be.
Yeah, Flowers has been good, and every time the game script is favorable, he plays well. But Deontay's going to 100% eat into his role. And it's weird because of all the places Deontay could go, the Ravens, in my mind, is the worst for him in terms of like opportunities and whatnot. I just don't see it going well. But it definitely helps the Ravens as a team, and it helps Lamar as being a better quarterback.
Totally. But I feel like the Ravens, I feel like we always get excited about a new Ravens wide receiver. Hollywood Brown being a good one, where it's like, oh, maybe this will be the guy that finally provides the safety valve, the extra threat in the Ravens offense. And it really just boils down to, Lamar being the most dangerous person in that offense, and you can't really trust anybody else. I am curious now, switching gears a little bit about, we didn't get a chance to talk about DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. What are your thoughts on the move, both for the Chiefs as a team, as well as for his fantasy prospects going forward?
I don't know. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins is almost washed, where he hasn't been great. He's been kind of mediocre, but I feel like he's solid and consistent and smart. And that's really what like the Chiefs need in somebody. If they can put out Juju Smith-Schuster and he can put up 20 plus points on his decrepit body, then DeAndre Hopkins should be able to be a reliable player. And it just seems that the Chiefs don't have anybody else. So I feel like he's going to get targets eventually. It's just a matter of like, when does he get integrated into the system and when does he get involved? So I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that he could have potential to be like, I don't know, probably wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2 the rest of the year. It's kind of like, that's the upside I see for him. I don't necessarily think that it helps Mahomes be a reliable fantasy starter, though. I think it helps the team more than it helps Mahomes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's like nice, not that the Chiefs need nice things, but it's nice for them to have somebody who is reliable on like a third down that can create a little bit of separation and make tough catches. But like, does that really always translate to a fantasy season? I would be really curious to see over the next couple of weeks what his like snap percentage is, because I feel like they're probably going to, they're they're going to make it into the playoffs, and so
Mhm.
having him as the safety valve in the divisional round of the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl is way more important to them than getting him high volume touches during the regular season. And so if he can have a couple moments of brilliance in the playoffs, that's what's going to sell, Chiefs fans on this trade. And DeAndre Hopkins owners are probably going to be disappointed. There, he'll have a couple multi-touchdown games, but at the same time, he's not going to be the Rashee Rice or the Tyreek Hill that ran the Chiefs offense in previous years.
I'm surprised they didn't go for Deontay though. I mean, Deontay was basically free. They
That's totally.
So it's like him. I feel like Deontay on the Chiefs would have been a way more valuable player and would have fit more of the Rashee Rice type of archetype of player, where it's like can just get open across the middle of the field and on these like intermediate routes. And I just don't know what Hopkins is good at anymore. Like he used to be that physical receiver who can get like didn't need great separation, but he could just like break off big plays. I just don't see
Yeah.
that anymore. So I don't know. It's the Panthers are just a bad team. I think that's the answer. Why do you trade your
It's
best receiver? Do they get a fourth back? It was a fourth and fifth swap or
no,
something?
they traded Deontay and a sixth for a fifth.
But
I
it's
think that was
but
the
giving
end
him to
of
the
it.
Ravens, it's going to be a late
A
fifth,
late fifth
and they're
for an
bad. So it's
early
early
sixth.
sixth. So it's like you have the comp
Yeah.
picks in the middle. It's like a 15 pick swap, is what it is.
Yeah.
And then if the Ravens don't want him, they're going to get a third round compensatory pick the following year. So it's like, why didn't you just hold him, get a comp pick as a third? Unless he's like some locker room cancer, but your team's garbage already. Just bench him if you don't like him.
Yeah. I don't
It
know.
makes no sense.
I feel like all of the trades that have happened this year have been really interesting, like team building quandaries. Like,
Yeah,
is this the right guy for us? Are we moving in the right direction? Are they happy here? And it sucks because like you think that moving these big wide receivers will impact fantasy teams in a big way. As an Amari Cooper owner, I'm really hoping that he thrives in Buffalo, but at the same time, like he's not Stephon Diggs. That they're not the same type of player
mm-hmm.
who Josh Allen has succeeded with before. DeAndre Hopkins and Patrick Mahomes. That's a weird fit. And so I guess we'll find out, but it's tough to have confidence. And I feel like if we had known these things were happening, when we drafted all of these teams, their value would have varied wildly as to compared to where it was when we all drafted.
Absolutely. Because then Cooper would have been a top player, knowing he's with
Totally.
Josh Allen all season, and same goes for DeAndre Hopkins. Like he wouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
the late round pick that he was at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really interesting. So, very, very. I mean, I love that there's movement in the NFL. I feel like that's relatively rare to see some of these like really big, good wide receivers, guys that could really impact your team, move around. But I just don't know that I'll have the fantasy impact that we all hope it will.
I was looking forward to Christian Kirk getting traded, and then he went and broke his collarbone, which is such a bummer because
Yeah,
like
that's a huge bummer.
you heard all the rumors that he was going somewhere too, and I imagined him going somewhere like Tampa Bay would have been a good fit for that team in terms of what he does well, or even if he went to the Chiefs instead of
Yeah,
Hopkins, that would have been interesting to have him over there with what he can do for that team.
I was I was intrigued by the Cooper Cup rumors.
Hmm.
I think Cooper Cup to we talked about Deontay Johnson. Cooper Cup to the Chiefs would have been super interesting. You mentioned the Bucks. Cooper Cup to the Bucks to replace Chris Godwin would have been super interesting. I guess it just depends on how all in you are because the compensation that the Rams were looking for was super high. But yeah, some of those rumors, I mean, especially the ones that are impacted by injury, really suck. I mean, even we didn't get a chance to talk about Chris Godwin, but he was a fantasy stud, looked really awesome. The Bucks were a lot of fun, and then him getting hurt was just super heartbreaking.
The hilarious part of the Cup rumor to Tampa Bay was that the coordinator who came over there wanted Godwin to play the Cooper Cup role. And how funny would it
Mm-hmm.
be if you traded for Cooper Cup to be back in the Cooper
Yeah,
Cup role? So that would have been a great fit for that team. But it didn't make sense for them to trade Cup away, because then what are you saying? Your team's done for the year and Stafford's retiring? Like, Stafford's not coming back if Cup goes away. He has nobody left. Like, Puka's great, but Puka's not his guy. Cup's his guy.
No. Yeah, that would have been a wild thing because I feel like McVay makes Cooper Kupp as valuable as he is. Mm-hmm. And so even if you're going to one of his coordinators, you're just not going to be able to provide him with the opportunities that he has. And, maybe there's something with this Stafford and Nakua lineup going forward. So, and the NFC West it feels like the Wild West. All those teams are super tight at the middle. So maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they make a run. Who knows?
Well, we'll see. You might have missed the news that Puka injured his knee again today. So we'll see what that means.
Shut up.
Yeah, he left practice, they said early, with a knee injury. Same knee.
Oh, my God.
So some people said it's not serious. But still.
More targets for Cooper Kupp.
More targets for Cooper Kupp. Exactly. So we'll see. It came up at like 4:30 today or 5 o'clock this evening about the news.
That's wild, man. That dude is awesome. He's super fun to watch. Definitely. So that would be a huge bummer. Even though it benefits my fantasy team, I do enjoy, he just always seems like he's open, and those guys are a lot of fun to watch on Sundays.
He's just a happy dude. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always just like, seems like he's just like having fun, which isn't always so common in the NFL.
No.
So bummer for sure. Let's get into waivers here. Kind of a slow week overall in terms of the league. I feel like the best players were already picked up here. Looking into it, Chris paid a lot for the Vikings, which seems like an overpay for a defense. But, we were chatting before, and at least he can use him for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So he has good matchups all the way through. So if you consider paying 2 or 3 fab per week for a good defense, not outrageous. So he went and got his team. Everybody else, kind of middle of the road. Nothing really super exciting here except recycling kickers and defenses. Anything stood out to you for the rest of the waivers?
Yeah, no, just as somebody who I picked up the Vikings in a different league. I mean, their defense has been awesome, so I totally understand where Chris is coming from. Their lowest point total before playing the Rams last week was 8 points in our scoring, the way that we do scoring, and then they have Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Chicago, Arizona. I think all of those, especially, I mean, our defensive waivers are getting tough. I'm streaming defenses. It is slim pickings. Mm-hmm. You really have to be putting up good money to get defenses with good matchups. So I fully see where he's coming from for somebody that you can get out there and start for a couple weeks. It's definitely the right move to do at this point. But I'm totally with you. I think that waivers this week were super thin. Max picking up Adam Thielen is a shot in the dark, but if he's stepping into the Deontay Johnson role and Andy Dalton is the one who's throwing once he's recovered from his thumb injury, that's probably a good pick. Parker Washington without Christian Kirk, that's a good pick. And that's about it, man. Elijah Moore looks okay with Jameis Winston. I'm not sure that that's something that'll continue, but other than that, I think I've said this before. It's really nice being in a league where the talent is all picked up. The guys who are exciting are on rosters already, so you have to either get creative or start throwing out good trade opportunities for people to get people on your roster that you are able to start on a weekly basis, and the bye weeks won't hurt you in that sense. So, really cool to see that the waivers are a little thin this week, because I think that means that our league is competitive and people are paying attention.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see if more trades happen. So far it's just you and I, the only people swapping players. We got a few more weeks before.
Pretty good trade.
Send Brett your running backs. He wants more.
I want good running backs. Trade them to me.
All right, let's get into the Week 8 recap here.
Let's do it.
I guess I better turn on my media first before I start demanding stuff from you. Okay, here we go. Hopefully the sound works, because I can't hear anything when it goes through. So fingers crossed.
I heard it.
Did you?
I heard it. I'm good. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect.
Music played.
Well, means I don't have to edit it in post because
There you
we
go.
all know I can't do that very well. All right.
It's
So our
not your
first,
job, Tim.
it's not my job. No, it just happens on work time sometimes. Sorry, my boss, if you're listening. Um, he's not listening. Our first matchup here, though, was Chris versus Katie. And going into the week, Chris was favored to win 132 to 117. Ended up playing out just about as expected, with Chris coming ahead 143 to 112. Katie's had a rough go. Just been a kind of a tough year all the way through, and hard to see positives at the moment.
I would love to see what Katie's team looked like if you added 20 Christian McCaffrey points to her total on a weekly basis, and just how that would have fared. Because I think that is kind of the plight of the first overall pick this year. Is there was kind of the no-brainer, and with the no-brainer not playing, it's been a rough go out there.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to mention, just real quick, is I think the big difference was Katie's depth. Is Chris started 4 running backs, all that had a total of 71 points. Katie, with her 2 running backs and her 2 flex spots, 46. And if you don't have those good performances from your flex spots, it's tough to win games. So you move, one of her starting running backs into the flex spot, move one of those bad performances out, add Christian McCaffrey in there. Her team starts to look a lot better, but it's a little rough go at this point.
Yeah. Chris wanted you to comment on some things in the league chat. He was asking you for it. But actually, what I want you to comment on is, do you notice Chris gets awfully talkative when he finally strings together 2 wins back to back? He's silent all the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season when his team's losing, but now he's getting a little mouthy, Brett. What do you think?
I don't have anything to say about that.
All right,
you want to go to my matchup with Brett?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll let you take this one. It's yours.
Sounds great. So projections at the outset were me to win by all of 2 points, 129 to 127. I ended up winning by 10 again on Monday night. So Monday nights have been very kind to me. I hope that continues for the rest of the season. But the biggest difference here was, and I called it out in the chat during the week, it was just an inefficient week by Brett. Had he picked a more optimal lineup, he would have absolutely demolished me. I think he probably would have ended up with the most points in the league by a significant margin. There were 104 points that he left on his bench. Obviously, that's not, he wouldn't jump from 126 to, 230 in that case, but it would have been much closer. So shout out to him for picking the team that he did and getting me the W there. But in terms of depth and a solid team, Brett is one to be reckoned with, has proved it over the last couple of weeks, and I'm just happy to escape with the victory there.
Yeah, he gave you some charity this week. Playing Keenan Allen and playing DeAndre Hopkins, both probably questionable starts retrospectively.
Yep.
And really anybody from his bench would have made him win. I did love the way you took the lead, though, or was the kick return touchdown on Monday night when Pittsburgh ran it back. That was a fun way to take the lead for you and kind of seal it.
It was, so of all of them, it has definitely been the one that was the most nerve-wracking. I think I had one where Jared Goff threw a touchdown pass to Amon-Ra. That was very exciting, but the weird thing with having a defense and a kicker is it's this yo-yo effect back and forth. So the kickoff return for the touchdown was super exhilarating, but also not the sort of thing that I want to go through. I need to start winning these games outright on Sunday and not having to sweat it out on Monday to get these wins that I'm eking out on a weekly basis.
I have one thought on Brett's team. I think that he needs to figure out how to consolidate his talent in trades. And I know he wants to do that. And he's pushing hard with people to get some players moved. But he has a lot of guys in that Deebo Samuel level tier of who does he start each week? Deebo Samuel or Josh Downs or Zay Flowers? No, Tillman is in the mix too in those things, where it's all guys that could be good. that have a little bit of volatility to them. And now it's like he's got to pick the right guys every week. But also it's guys that aren't exciting to receive in a trade either. So it's like if you're going to send them to somebody else, the league might not be super excited about those players given who they are. It's a tough spot to be in.
Totally. I think that it's hard in a smaller league where there's not as much gap between like the haves and the have-nots, because generally in like a 12-team league, there'll be somebody in the bottom 3 or 4 that has a superstar that's looking for a little bit of depth, that looks for the guys that you're mentioning that they can add 2 or 3 of and trade away a Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, a Jaden Daniels, somebody that moves the needle a lot for somebody at the top, but will bring them into the fray in that sense. And with 10 teams, it's a lot harder to say like, hey, here's depth for your team, where it's like, okay, but you're just offloading your decision-making problem onto me for my best player.
Right.
And that is what I found with a lot of like our trade that we made was kind of a similar thing. It was like, you really needed a wide receiver, I needed a running back, but I traded you also a running back, and you traded me a
we swapped our problem players. I took your problem running back, you took my problem receiver.
Correct.
And we swapped good running backs and receivers as well.
Right. It was like for like, and then also bad for bad. But we ended up with essentially the same problem that we had. It just filled out our rosters more effectively. And I think that is more of what you'll see, as opposed to like I think right now I have a lot of depth. I have JSN, Brian Thomas Jr. When Nico comes back, I'm going to have a really hard time starting wide receivers, but nobody wants to take 3 almost starters for your 1 must start guy. And so trying to find that trade to like bolster out your playoff lineup makes it a lot more difficult. And so hopefully either his team shakes out or he and I can find trade partners, because I think he and I are a little bit in the same place in that sense.
Yeah, and speaking of those teams that are at the bottom and maybe should have sold their best player, you wonder if, looking back on it, should Katie have sold McCaffrey like week 1 or 2, or like week 3 when her team's now gone 0-3? It's hard to give up the 101 in that regard, and you always hope he's come back sooner than he is. But I think when the news became mid-November as a target date, you have to wonder if a top team like you or Alex could have been convinced to trade for McCaffrey and give up something very valuable that you wouldn't be able to use for 4 weeks and get her back into contention, but you could stash him and effectively make your way through until he's back. I mean, it's too late now. I feel like she's ridden this wave. She has to ride it out at this point if he's back in 2 weeks. But that would have been an interesting play.
Tim, speaking of teams at the bottom that may need to make some moves in order to be successful, why don't you tell us about your matchup with Sam?
Yeah, so get into this one. Sam was projected to win 135-133. Did not turn out that way. I won this one by a pretty wide margin, 163-96. It was just a bad day for Sam's team all the way through. Nothing went right. Injuries, bad play, all of the above. And then really my team finally showed up. I'm back, baby. Watch out.
The heavy hitters.
Running the table. The rest of the way out. No more losses. Who wants to bet me some money?
I think I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be the guy, if you look across the fantasy landscape, probably led to the most wins last week, and you had him on your team. Like, that was an easy way to win that game. The margin of victory was much larger than that. Achan had a good game, and then with Love going down, London not performing, Reed, having to deal with Malik Willis for some of that game, it's just a week from hell. I think her team is fine. I don't know that that's going to be. I think this is one that we're going to look back on and just think like, oh my God, she didn't break 100 this week. That's insane.
Right.
But good on you for getting a win and moving on up. Like you said, you're within 2 games of third place. That's a wild place to be for a 2-6 team. So
right.
Also nice for our league to be competitive enough for literally everybody to be within striking distance if you get your stuff together, because the playoffs are still, what is it, like 7-8 weeks away at this point?
A lot of time left. And I think we're going to talk about this for the rest of the league. Are you healthy at the right time? I feel like it's what it's going to be. My team was beat up like crazy for the first 5 weeks of the season.
Totally.
Finally getting everybody back. And it's just a matter of does it stay that way? And what other teams are impacted by this down the road? Because lots of injuries. Again, it's just more and more each week at this point, which is crazy.
Yep.
Well, let's get into Lizzy versus Alex. I believe maybe it wasn't the matchup of the week. I can't remember anymore. But Alex was favored to win this one 131-130. And Alex came away with the win in the end, 166-148, which is always a bummer when you put up 148 and then lose. Lizzy's had a bit of a rough go on this one. I think we both say she's
a super rough go.
Yeah. You commented on them before where it's like her points for are huge. And then I would say points against are also huge, but I think it's just the wrong timing because her points against compared to everybody else is actually kind of right in the mix there. It's not outrageous where it's at, but it's just running into the wrong team the wrong week. And then when she blows up, the team she plays sometimes doesn't perform. So it's like getting easy wins.
Absolutely. You got to beat the team that's in front of you. You can't do anything else. And she just continuously runs up against these freight trains, people that are scoring above 150 points. She had the third highest points scored this week and still got the loss. That's insane. Currently, she is leading our league in points for by 59 points, and yet she is 3 games out of the top spot. With everybody that is 4-4, she is currently a full 230 points above the last 4-4 team. But like those records match up, and when we get to the playoffs, your record is all that you have to hang your hat on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, points for will win you a tiebreaker, but at the end of the day, like you got to have enough wins to play at the end of the year. We keep saying she'll be fine, but like it's a little tough. Like maybe her team's just beat up a little bit and cursed, but I mean, in most fantasy seasons, it will work itself out. She will end up near the top, and she will have a shot at the championship. This seems more like variance than anything else, but it is wild that she continuously runs into these losses that she definitely does not deserve.
Agreed. And it's rough games from Amon-Ra and Saquon. Both of them were underperforming compared to what they usually did. And I don't know, Amon-Ra, what's his stat line? 2 for 2, 7 yards. But bailed out by a touchdown. It makes no sense. They scored 52 points. You're telling me he couldn't get more than 2 receptions? So I don't understand that.
As a Jared Goff owner, it is wild that he had like 85 yards. They scored 50 plus points, and there was just nothing there.
Yeah, absurd. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. They're a good team. They had way too many trick plays last week, which is fun to watch. Frustrating for fantasy. Our last matchup here was Denny versus Max. And Max came in this one favored 132-124. And Danny blew up 173-145, which is a crazy performance for him.
Hi, babe.
Everything went right.
Hold on. You going to say hi to Tim?
Hello. Nice
Why
outfit.
do you need my phone? Oh, babe. We're trying to do things. Now Tim has to edit all this out.
No, we're not going to. This is live. This is real life.
We're keeping it in. This is real life. This is how it goes.
You didn't notice Rachel sneaking in to get her pump parts out of here earlier?
No, I didn't.
No, she was sneaky. It's not behind me, at least. It's on the other side of my camera.
That's funny.
All right, back to it.
Yeah.
If you're free, of course.
Oh yeah, totally.
All right, cool.
She's stealing photos of Ben from Halloween tonight.
Oh, well, that's important. That's way more important than fantasy football, right?
Totally. Okay, Danny and Max. Danny had a huge day. The big thing is, man, Kate Otten really benefited from the wide receiver shortage in Tampa Bay. 30 points out of him is absolutely nutty, and basically the entirety of the margin of victory there. You could have seen Kate Otten with a single point, and the fact that he put up 30 ended up winning him the game. Bye, babe. Love you.
Also hilarious that Danny was talking about starting 3 tight ends in this league. It's like, when you're forced to start 3 tight ends in a week, it never goes well. And then he proceeded to have 3 of the highest scoring tight ends in the league, which was just hilarious. That's like 17, 25, 29. Like, that's not what you expect. Out of receivers, you'd be thrilled if that's what you got. If you got 17 points of each receivers, you'd be excited about that. But tight ends?
The fact that he put Njoku as his like main tight end with the other 2 is like, I guess, and they dropped 54 between them is nutty. But
I think that's timing,
good
though.
Picks.
It was I think
that's
that
great picks.
Njoku was the first game of the day at 10 a.m. And I think that that's probably what it was, more than anything else.
That's a good point. Still.
Or he's pumping him up. He's like, you're my starting tight end. You're going to do so good this week. Put up so many points
17 points, pretty good.
You're way better than Travis Kelce. He's barely in my flex.
Yeah. Super
All
funny.
right. Well, Max, I'm sorry. Another tough loss. But sometimes Danny's team shows up. Other times he doesn't. This week was just one of those weeks.
Wild.
Ready to get into the awards?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, starting us off with Stud of the Week. This week's winner is Jalen Hurts, which was a pretty big week in a high-scoring matchup against Lizzy. Scored 35 points, which in the hilarious part of his stats is that he had 3 rushing touchdowns, which is just crazy to think. And maybe that's why Saquon wasn't as good this week when Jalen's getting all the rushing touchdowns. It was a high-scoring matchup, ended up probably being the margin that Alex needed in that one.
And absolutely. I think that's definitely, Lamar Jackson dropped 24, which is a great quarterback day, but 35 is absolutely spectacular. Definitely not what you expect from Jalen Hurts. I mean, his most points up to this point was only 24. And so for him to outdo that was pretty spectacular. Doing it on the ground, decent through the air, but 4 total touchdowns and 3 of them rushing is outrageous. Definitely Stud of the Week.
Excuse me. And then our runner-up this week was CeeDee Lamb, putting up 39 points. Didn't look good to start. The first half of the game was a little bit slow. Had plenty of targets, but just not getting many yards. And then had the explosion at the end, putting up 2 touchdowns there. Luckily, I didn't need him, which was kind of nice. His points were huge. Really could have done anything and probably beat Sam this week. But I'm happy to have him on my team if this is what the rest of the season looks like for him.
So I think both of his touchdowns were special.
You mean blown coverage?
They were absolute blown coverages. You can't expect that to happen. Let me share this Dak Prescott quote with you that I thought was fascinating. And any opportunity to shit on the Cowboys, I will absolutely take it. Shane Half says there may not have ever been a QB who thrives on garbage time the way Dak Prescott does. Last night through the first 3 quarters, this is against the 49ers, he goes 16 of 23 for 116 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So you only missed 7 balls, but threw 2 interceptions and put the Cowboys down 17. From that point on, when CeeDee Lamb absolutely blew up, when the game is basically out of reach, he goes 9 for 11 for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the defense got the ball back. They had a chance to win it with 3 minutes left. Dak Prescott goes 0-4, and they lose the game.
Yep. Yeah. That's about right.
Yay, go Cowboys.
Yeah.
But hey, 40 points for you and a huge win to keep you in the hunt. Absolutely. Stud of the Week. It's a great win.
Let's move into the Dud of the Week here. And I won't make you take the heat on this one because I picked this one. So I will take this. The winner of the Dud of the Week is Sam's whole team. Everything was bad. Injuries, poor performance. We've beaten this like a dead horse.
Yeah.
It was a rough go. But I'll give you runner-up since it's your guy.
Absolutely. We talked about trades at the top of the show. I'm super excited for Amari Cooper and Josh Allen to be working together. He was on the field like 35% of the snaps in his first week. That bumped all the way up to 50% this week. So I expect that number to continue to go higher and him to be more and more a part of the offense. He had one catch for 3 yards.
Yeah, that's bad.
Woof. And so thank goodness that I won this week, but a decent game out of him, something that is normal, would have made it a lot more competitive between me and Brett. So dud of the week, but expect him to continue to be in my lineup going forward because of the opportunity that he has in a good Bills offense.
Absolutely. You never would have thought that him playing with Josh Allen would be worse than him playing with Deshaun Watson. But I'd say I think this is the worst game of the year. I don't think he's ever scored less than that.
Yeah. Well, and my expectation is this will be his worst game of the year, that it will only get better with him and the Bills offense going forward. Yeah. You don't trade for somebody like Amari Cooper without the expectation that you're going to use him heavily. That being said, I will give a shout out to Keon Coleman, who does look like he is benefiting quite a bit, not only from the experience that he's built up in the first 8 weeks of the season, but also with another wide receiver who's there to take some of the attention away from him. So whoever's got him has a good one because he looks great.
I also forgot that Cooper has a wrist injury, so I'm wondering if that was part of what happened in this game, that he was limited this week with a wrist injury. So I'm curious if maybe that popped up during the game and like, well, we just don't need you at this point. The game's out of reach, so just coast. Fair. Who knows?
All right, talk to me about the your Michael Scott, Michael
J. Fox. Wow. Shaky start of the week. We'll get there. It's all right.
Sorry, I got two of our awards mixed up with each other. So Michael J. Fox, shaky start of the week. Tim, go.
All right, cool. You had one too many beers on Halloween and one too many of your full-size candy bars. A little bit pumped up on sugar.
I don't disagree.
And a little bit inebriated. But it's all right. We're good. So this week's winner is DeAndre Hopkins. His first week with the Chiefs didn't go so well. Only scored 4 points this week. And I think that most of us would have assumed with it being traded a little bit later in the week, I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday trade, that he really wouldn't get much playing time. And that's really what happened here. It was one of those scenarios where Brett 100% should have benched him, and playing anybody else in his place would have given him the win over you. So definitely a shaky start. I think he kind of owned it in the chat there as well when we kind of were talking at the end of the week.
I think you also nailed it. Like a lot of the guys on his team would have been shaky starts as well. Cedric Tillman had 28 points. That would have been a tough start. Ricky Pearsall in his second game, that would have been tough. Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson has been up and down. So a lot of shaky starts because of the depth that Brett has. It just sucks that he made the wrong choice in DeAndre Hopkins in this one.
Yeah. And really, there wasn't anybody else left in the league. We kind of scoured the rosters for a bit, looking for people who are shaky starts.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything obvious. It was the players who didn't perform well are ones that you probably didn't expect too much out of. So we're kind of like scraping the bottom of the barrel here, even to get DeAndre Hopkins on this one. Let's jump into your Michael Scott No God Please No award.
Well, let's start with my apologies for the curse, because my pick 2 weeks ago was Chris Godwin. The last thing I want is this to be a award that gets people hurt and knocks people out for the season, because I was really enjoying watching Chris Godwin. I love a high volume target guy. I love somebody who's a big possession receiver, and to see him go down, and for me to have played any part in that is heartbreaking and a huge bummer. But this week, I think I have to go with Devon Achane, specifically whenever he plays with Tua. That offense works a little bit better, but Tua's ability to get Achane the ball in these short, high target volume offensive sets is unparalleled. There's very few running backs that are just getting the volume of touches, and especially in a PPR league, if they're getting these behind the line little toss plays and screens and stuff, I mean, his numbers just jump regardless of whether or not he's having success or regardless of whether or not they're having successful running plays, and then his big playability on top of that is just outmatched. So every time that they're on the field together, that dude is scary, both because of his talent and the way that the Dolphins utilize him.
He's great, absolutely. And the crazy part is he had a big day, and it could have been bigger if the 2 touchdowns that went to Mostert, even one of them went to him on the ground. Because Mostert did next to nothing, 9 carries for 19 yards, but they just happened to be at the goal line, and he punched 2 in. So we'll see. I think that maybe they were a little bit soft on HN this week, coming back from the concussion. Don't beat him into the ground at the goal line. Let somebody else do it. But the rest of the season, he'll be getting the goal line work as well. So if he truly does get it and stays healthy, he'll be scary for sure.
Fingers crossed he stays healthy.
He's fragile
with that. Yeah, that sort of player, it's always tough. Yeah. Moving on to the Jesse Pinkman, he can't keep getting away with it award. We have Zay Flowers. Game script, man. When they are in a favorable game script, he absolutely kills it. But as we talked about earlier, the Deontay Johnson trade really eats into what is possible for him. So this is not so much a frustrated he can't keep getting away with it, but almost a matter of fact that he can't keep getting away with it, because now there's somebody else who does what he does just as well there in Baltimore with him.
And this one also has turned into a bit of a curse again. With 2 weeks ago, we had Alan Lazard as our pick for this, and then he promptly got hurt and is now on injured reserve. So kind of amusing that the people that we're picking for these keep going down to something. Unfortunately, that it's injuries, but that's just how it works sometimes. Well, that's it for the awards. We're going to jump into a quick word from our sponsors this week, and then we'll get into the Week 9 preview.
She started the season as the reigning champion, the league's golden child, the underdog that everyone could get behind. She promised us a dynasty, a football empire built on touchdowns and fantasy points. But what has she delivered? Constant excuses and a measly 4-4 record.
Her opponent, on the other hand, has a proven track record of success. A master strategist who knows how to draft, trade, and start the right players. A leader who understands the importance of a strong defense and a reliable kicker. A man of the people who only rarely takes advantage of the weak and unwitting. Don't let our league be dominated by extremists. Put your support behind Max O'Brien, the candidate who knows how to win. Paid for by the committee to send Lizzy straight to jail.
All right, welcome back in. Didn't know we were getting political here tonight, but I guess vote for Max, down with Lizzy. That's just how it's going to be, right, Brett?
Yeah, Lizzy sucks.
Lizzy sucks. Don't listen to the outtakes. We were talking shit about you the whole time. Boo. All right, into the Week 9 preview. All right, Week 9. We're about halfway through the season, halfway through the full season, not the fantasy season. And we're tight. Lots of people, you talked about it, sitting at 4-4. I think we're going to start seeing, it's kind of make or break time for all of us. Our first matchup here, Chris versus Danny. You want to take this?
Absolutely. I think, a lot of these teams, we're going to see a couple 4-4 matchups against each other, and separating yourself is going to be a big deal. Another thing that's really interesting is I feel like basically all of the matchups this week already had the Thursday Night Football had significant impact on them. The note that we have here is, 10 points out of Breece Hall for Danny does not set him up for a particularly strong week in general. And so the projection as it stands is 132 points for Chris, 131 with those 24 points that Danny currently has. So interesting. Low points from Bryce, good points from the Jets defense. Makes this a little bit tighter because the original projection was Danny having a 6-point advantage, and that has dropped to -1. But I do think these are two really well balanced teams. But Danny is starting 3 tight ends again. And so though those 3 guys had success last week, it'll be interesting to see what happens this week. And I think the shaky start of the week, maybe every week, is Chris starting Tyreek Hill. So what are your thoughts? Anything that you notice about this matchup?
The matchup predictions changed a bit because I think Chris subbed in Puka. He had him on his bench before.
Oh.
So I think that's what's making the difference here of what I had in the show doc.
Got it.
Between now and then. But now Puka's hurt. So I think that's one more thing for Chris to watch of is he going to play or not. I keep thinking it's DeAndre Swift. And I keep thinking this guy sucks. He shouldn't be good. He shouldn't be playing well. But it's the Cardinals defense who is abysmal. So like his projection of 12 points, he's going to put up more than 12 points again because it's just going to happen. So I don't know. Chris's team is on a bit of a roll. And I think that, Tyreek Hill's had kind of a rough go for a bit. But he should get back in the groove of Tua. And they should be playing well. And the rest of his team has been very good. I'd say he should probably just ditch Mahomes by now and play somebody else, but it's hard to let the name go, I think.
It's hard to quit Patrick Mahomes.
It is. But it'll be interesting. It's going to be close. It's 1 point off right now, and Danny got a bit bailed out by the Jets defense on Thursday night. So good for him.
One final note, DeAndre Swift currently the number 16 running back in fantasy.
Is that really all it is? It feels way more.
Why? What do you mean? That's an RB. That's a top end RB2, man.
I get it, but he's just blown up so many weeks. I would have expected him to be an RB1 with how big his performances have been. But I guess he started off slow.
Aaron Jones, number 15. Josh Jacobs, number 10. Breece Hall, number 7. Ramondre Stevenson, 23. So, he started off super slow, has really picked it up. I mean, no less than last week in the last 4 games that he started was his last time under 20 points.
Right.
So,
and that's why I expect him to do better.
The Bears offense has looked a lot better since the first couple weeks of the year. So I think it's mostly a product of that. I don't know that he is a good running back. He is just the running back in what has turned out to be a pretty good offense.
So I think it's the recency bias there. It's 4 big weeks back to back to back to back, which makes me think that he should be higher than he is. But either way, Chris is getting lucky with that one so far. It's paying off for now.
Yeah.
Our next one here is Katie versus myself. If you want to go into that one now.
Absolutely. So currently, or at least at the outset of the week, you were favored 130 to 112. Now, after Thursday Night Football, you hold a 32-point advantage with 139 over 107. Tough game for C.J. Stroud, only 11 points. Devontae Adams with a great game, 7 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Kami Fairbairn continues to be just a solid kicker, almost 10 points for him as well. Another tough one. I think your team is, though at 2-6, just is a lot better. There is opportunity here for Katie to pull this one out. Tough when you're hoping for 20 to 25 points out of CJ Stroud, but I think her team has a lot of talent. It's just got to hit, and if it doesn't hit, then it's going to be rough. Whereas I think your team is a little bit more consistent, has a couple more stars, people that you can weather a bad game from because there will be somebody else to pick up the slack.
Definitely. You talk about Fairbairn putting up 9 points. He missed 2 field goals tonight. It could have been a lot worse in terms of this episode I had.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yep. I'm just happy. Excuse me.
Sorry, I'll jump in as you die. I was wondering why the game was so close. I just expected the Texans to beat the crap out of them. 2 missed field goals is really a huge difference in the game, and probably the big reason why the Jets ended up winning.
In the end, probably yes. I'm just relieved that I'm facing Katie at the right time. With McCaffrey coming back soon, it would have been awfully frustrating if everybody else in the league got to play Katie, sans McCaffrey, and then he finally comes back the last person in the cycle, which is myself, and just has a massive game. So thank you, Katie, for having him be on bye this week. And we all get one turn against you without McCaffrey. And then we get to restart the cycle next week.
Totally.
With him. So time is good. I think it's I like my odds, and it's kind of another, I won't say get right game, but I need some wins, and sometimes you have an easier matchup. So just gotta hope the players show up, nobody gets hurt, secures a win. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Next one here, Brett Johnson versus Alex. Surprisingly, Brett's favored 124 to 117 in this one after Alex has had kind of a dominating performance at the start of the year. What do you think about these two? My projections
really
are
like
bad. That number I had can't be right for Alex 117. He must have updated his roster since I've took these notes.
That would make a lot of sense. But still, I mean, after Mixon put up a 16-point game, Brett Johnson still has a 5-point lead, 133 to 128 projection. I just really like both of these teams. Running quarterbacks, good running backs, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Nick Chubb. Like these are two really good teams. I'll be super interested to see how this one shakes out. I just think it's going to come down to whoever's team's most consistent and probably the one who doesn't have who we end up putting dud of the week next week.
Yeah. And we'll see how Alex's team plays out going forward now that Jordan Mason maybe is useless with McCaffrey coming back.
Yeah.
We'll see, because he's definitely taken advantage of an essentially free player putting up running back one numbers.
Totally.
I think it's going to be close for sure. And we'll see if Brett picks the right guys. We've kind of talked about that extensively, that he's got a lot of people kind of in that middle tier of receiver who could be very good on a given week. And it's just, do you pick the right one? So we'll see how that one plays out. Any more thoughts on Brett versus Alex before we move over to your matchup with Sam?
No, should be a fun one. Not the matchup of the week, but a good one for sure.
Well, this is yours. You take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Sam's team is good. 4-4, a record that doesn't reflect the talent that she has on her roster. She was favored at the outset to beat me by 7 points, 127 to 120, and then got 30 points. Just a huge game from Garrett Wilson. And if you haven't seen, Tim told me to watch the catch that he had in the back of the end zone for one of his touchdowns. It's spectacular. So definitely check that out if you haven't seen it. But 9 out of 10 receptions, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, stellar performance. Going to be tough to come back from. But that being said, I fully did not expect Tank Dell to step up and have the game that he did also. So 18 points out of him feels really, really good. Definitely exceeded his projections. So if my guys step up and are performing well, this could be super duper close. Like some things, if Nakua ends up being out, Cooper Kupp is a huge start. Love the fact that she's starting Madison. The Raiders' run offense is pretty bad. But yeah, I think this one should be pretty close as well. As soon as I can get a defense that'll actually play on Sunday, and I think this will look a lot closer.
That's true. I didn't even see that you didn't have a defense in that slot. So yeah, it'll be a close one for sure. I don't know. I think Sam's got a great team, and very clearly didn't show up last week. But I really doubt that she puts up 2 duds in a row with how good she's been.
I just want to make the comment that, like, this is 8 out of 9 weeks that we've done this, and we talk about 9 out of the 10 teams in our league as though they have we have good squads. Like, we talk about your team being hurt, and now that everybody's healthy, that's a really good squad. 9 out of 10 teams, and Katie's squad just being a Christian McCaffrey away from being competitive, that's really awesome. The fact that everybody's team is super competitive, that you can put on a team that can win every single week, is something to be celebrated. I think there's a lot of fantasy leagues where apathy kind of steps in and bad trades and bad faith get made. But this has been a lot of fun this year, just to see how everybody kind of mixes and mingles and puts together, teams that can put up, like Sam put up 96 last week and could put up 200 this week if her team pops off. So it's been that piece of it has been a lot of fun for sure.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's I'm always happy with this league.
Yeah, it's a good league for sure.
Our last one here, match for the week, Lizzy versus Max. The fundraising is going against Lizzy right now, and it seems that Nobody wants a reigning champion. They want her to lose. Max is favored this week, 141 to 132. What do you think about these two?
I mean, these might be my two favorite teams in the league. They're super duper fun. Not a single player on either team that I don't like. This is going to be a great matchup of the week. I cannot believe that there's an 8-point gap in projection between the two of them, because this is just like, this is going to this could potentially be one of those matchups where there's a lead, like a weak winner on both sides, and yet we get something that ends up very, very close to each other. Gibbs versus Montgomery, however the game script plays out in Detroit, is super interesting. Max with the Jaden Daniels McLaurin stack. Brock Bowers has been great. Trey McBride has been great. Marvin Harrison. Chris Olave had a big week. Kyron Williams. These are just superstar riddled teams that I think this is going to be kind of a league defining week between these two absolute stellar squads. And it is super insane that these teams are fighting for the benefit of being above 500 in this week. That's nuts.
The funny thing is that Lizzy's getting Mark Andrews back in the lineup in the flex. She's taking inspiration from Danny. Start as many tight ends as possible if you want to win. I think that's the answer, right, Lizzy? But it's going to be a good matchup for sure. And when I was looking at the projections, I'm like, Max is 141. How does he have 141? And then you look at his roster, and I was like, oh yeah, that's how he has 141. And he'll probably end up swapping defenses too, because I can't imagine he'll go into the week with Green Bay versus Detroit. There's got to be somebody better out there, and they'll just bump the projections up even more for him.
Yeah, it was funny. I was trying to trade with Max a week or two ago, and he was saying how he didn't have any running backs. And you look at this team, and it's just absolutely stacked with his depth at running back, his depth at wide receiver. There's startable players all over it. It is super impressive the way that both of these teams were constructed. I feel like Lizzy's draft was probably the best draft that any of us put together. With Xavier Worthy, Mike Evans hurt. This team is absolutely spectacular from a starting lineup perspective. To see a team that's just like draft, like if you draft well and if you play the waiver wire well, you can win. A lot of games has been super impressive to see.
I mean, she hit on the one tight end that actually meant anything as a draft pick in Bowers.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody else's draft picks had pretty miserable starts to begin the year, and the ones who were performing well were off the waiver wire. So she's definitely had some hits there.
Totally.
It's going to be a good matchup, that's for sure. And
I'm excited. This should be a fun week.
I think it's an interesting one, too, with them both being 4-4, which is crazy that you're going to have a very good team have a losing record when it's all said and done. Absolutely. But that's just the parity of the league right now.
I will say, I imagine that Alex will agree with me. It is super nice having a little bit of a couple win buffer at the top because, I expect to lose to Sam this week. I would be excited if I won. I expected to lose to Brett last week. I'm super happy that I won. Even going up against you or Katie, there's definite opportunity to lose those matchups, and especially now that you're healthy. Once Christian comes back, it's going to be nuts. So should be a fun kind of drive to the finish now that we're at the halfway point. I'm excited to see how things shake out,
and we get to play again next week, so we'll be talking about our matchup pretty soon.
Bring your $100, Tim.
Is that what we're going to do? Money down? All right. We can do it. That's fine. All right. Let's call it quits. It's Halloween. It's time for us to get to bed.
Absolutely. I got a 7:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Fun stuff. I don't. I get to probably sleep. I might be able to sleep in if it wasn't for two small children who need to be awake by 7 o'clock. But that's how it is. All right. Well, that's going to do it, everybody. Nice talking to you all, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck, everybody.